Hello, and welcome to another Fantasy Premier League video. My name is Steve, and I have 3 free transfers available for Game Week 8, and I'm planning on using all of them. Yes, I'll be spending all 3 of my transfers in a triple change to 3 of my outfield players, opting to continue with a dirt cheap bench for this next block of upcoming fixtures. Now, I also have a tentative transfer penciled in to move out one of my other premium assets next week in Game Week 9 as I break apart my threemium setup to revert back to a 2 premium team for the coming weeks. So remember to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, especially if you get any value out of the following content. Right, so Salah isn't playing like a £12.5 million asset. Now, Salah has actually been off his game for a couple of weeks now. I noticed in Game Week 6, 2 game weeks ago, that Salah wasn't really getting into the box as much. He also didn't seem to want to get into the box either. There were a couple of moves where he had the opportunity to make his normal darting runs inside, and he just stayed out on the wing, jogging about, not really looking like he had much urgency to get anywhere near the box. Now, the shots that he took were mostly under hit, tame even, and he just looked off compared to what we know Salah can do. Now, in Game Week 7, just gone before the international break, Salah was subbed off at the 72nd minute mark, and having watched that game, I was actually anticipating Salah to be subbed off because I thought he wasn't playing very well in that match either. So it did not at all come as a surprise when he got subbed at the 72nd minute mark. Now, this is not at all what I want from the second most expensive asset in the game. Now, when I did triple up on the 3 premiums, I had only planned to hold them for a very short run of fixtures, and I did know that I would need to sell one of my premium assets in order to get hold of those funds to make other moves in my team. Now, as you can see on screen, up in the top right hand corner here, I only have 0.1 million in the bank. Also, if you are new to the channel, this is the site that I am working on. It's still very much in development. It is changing video to video at the moment. Still a few things that aren't quite working, and it's not showing that I have 3 free transfers at the moment. But as you can see, I have very little money to work with. But for the run of 3 games where I wanted to have Haaland, Salah, and Saka in the team, Semenyo, Rogers, and Joao Pedro all had pretty nice fixtures, all things considered. But that run of 3 fixtures is coming to a close. Now, of course, the last time I sold Salah, I sold him just before that United fixture, and that move went terribly. Now, this was my own fault, as I had been watching United and I did know that they were playing quite poorly at that time, but I didn't foresee a 17-point spanking by Salah when I did sell him last time. And having copped that on the chin, it does make me a little bit more apprehensive about the move. However, I can't let that earlier mistake affect my decision making here, and having ruminated on this for quite a while, I am actually pretty comfortable in ditching Salah in order to get access to that money. Now, selling Salah, who is actually the most expensive midfielder in the game, does mean that I can buy literally anyone. Now, before we go into the replacements, I did have some tentative moves planned for how I was going to break apart the threemium in Game Week 8 a few weeks ago, which we should probably cover off first. Now, Semenyo did come into the team in order for me to afford the 3 premium setup. And in Game Week 8, Bournemouth's fixtures do take a very short turn for the worst. So this is my fixture ticker that I actually built last season. I actually haven't done a hell of a lot to it this season. Um, but anyway, the way that it works is mine fixture ticker works on the delta difference between the strength of the opponent, the strength of the team and the strength of the opponent that they come up against. So Man City would be the strongest team in the league, and so their delta will always put them a lot higher up the list in my fixture ticker, if you're wondering why mine looks quite different to most of the other ones out there. But anyway, Bournemouth is right down the bottom when we order by the next 4 game weeks, which you can see by the orange colouring in the header at the top. So for game weeks 8, 9, 10 and 11, Bournemouth have Arsenal at home, terrible fixture. Aston Villa away, which I think Bournemouth do have a pretty good shot at returning in that game. I don't see them returning 2 to 3 goals or anything like that. I think they'll probably get a goal in that match. But then it's followed straight up by Man City at home. So 2 of the toughest fixtures in the next 3. And so I did have a plan to tentatively transfer Semenyo out as these fixtures stiffen. Now, there is a case that could be made to hold on to Semenyo because after this next 3 fixtures, they have Brentford away. Brentford have actually been shipping quite a few goals. Brighton's extremely high line is still being deployed, and they will probably still ship quite a few goals. Wolves have been shipping all sorts of goals. Tottenham's defense has been a little bit leaky, and then they have Ipswich and West Ham afterwards. So I could definitely make a case for holding on to Semenyo, but I do kind of want to avoid these 3 fixtures. So that was one tentative move. The other, well, actually, that was my only tentative transfer out. So I was looking to break apart the threemium and then upgrade Semenyo to avoid these 3 tricky fixtures. Now, Joao Pedro has actually been injured for a couple of weeks now, which was really the spanner in the works for this threemium, as I ended up having to play one of my 4.0 assets in the last 2 game weeks. And I actually went for Greaves in both of those game weeks, who got back-to-back 0 pointers, which is not at all ideal. Now, I could have actually played FaZe last week. He did come away with a clean sheet against Bournemouth. Considering I did own Semenyo, I decided to play Greaves last week and hope that Semenyo did in fact score a goal rather than hedging my bets. Now, Joao Pedro was the most annoying injury out of the 3 enablers that I had in my squad, because there's not actually many other options up front in that price bracket of about 5.5 to 6 million, where I actually wanted to jump off Joao Pedro in order to fix him. Whereas had it been Semenyo or Rogers who was one of the guys that got injured, there are actually quite a few different options in midfield that I would have happily jumped across to. But anyway, Pedro has been injured for a couple of weeks now. Brighton's fixtures are still not amazing across the next 4 either. They have Newcastle away, which, I mean, that's going to be a tough game. Wolves at home, they could actually score quite a few goals in, but then they have Liverpool away and Man City at home. So Brighton's fixtures aren't ideal anyway. And so even if Joao Pedro was fit and available, I'd probably still be looking to sell him as well. So those are the 3 players that are on the chopping block: Salah, Semenyo, and Joao Pedro. Now, obviously, I do have Saka in my team, who is currently flagged, and so I may need to have a look. Well, I think Saka's going to be okay, but I am waiting on more information, and if we do find out that Saka is more injured than what we think he is, then I may have to adjust my transfers. But anyway, let's just assume from this point that Saka is going to be okay moving forward. Right, so Man City's attack across the next 4 fixtures just screams lots of goals. Now, Man City's next four is Wolves away, Southampton at home, Bournemouth away, and then Brighton away. So they do actually have 3 away games. However, Wolves have been shipping goals this season. In fact, they've currently shipped the most goals of any team in the Premier League across the first 7 game weeks. So on my fixture ticker here, I'm just going to order by goals conceded. You can see Wolves is at the bottom, having conceded 21 goals in 7 game weeks, averaging 3 goals per game. Now the XGC is actually only 13.5. So they're actually off by, what's that, 7.5 goals across 7 game weeks. So that expected goals figure does look a little bit dodgy. Now, City could score 4 to 5 goals in this game against Wolves this weekend. Now, if I just roll this fixture ticker back and started at game week 1, it's still ordered by goals conceded. So we can actually have a look at who Wolves have played and whether or not they should have conceded 21 goals or not. So they conceded 2 goals against Arsenal in the first game week. They then conceded 6 against Chelsea in game week 2. They conceded 1 against Forest, 2 against Newcastle, 3 against Villa, 2 against Liverpool, and then just last week they conceded another 5 goals against Brentford. There is just no defense at Wolves at the moment, and so Man City, who knows how many goals they could score this week? It could be 4, 5, 6 goals. Chelsea's done 6, Brentford's done 5. It could easily be a game where Man City absolutely run away with it, and Pep might actually opt to work on their goal difference in this fixture. Now, if we go back to game week 8, Man City then have Southampton at home in game week 9, and they are currently second to bottom for goals conceded across the first 7 fixtures, having conceded 15 goals, which is equal with Everton and 1 worse than Ipswich. Now, Southampton's run of fixtures have actually been much kinder than Wolves. Wolves have had to play some tricky teams: Arsenal, Chelsea, Newcastle, Villa, Liverpool, all tough attacking teams. Southampton, on the other hand, have had to play Newcastle, Forest, Brentford, United. That's not a hard game. Brentford, okay. Forest is a tough game, but they're not known for scoring a lot of goals. Newcastle's a tough game. Ipswich, not particularly tough. Bournemouth is middling. And then Arsenal last week, where they conceded 3. So they have had a much easier run of fixtures. Man City could absolutely destroy Southampton in game week 9. We'll just go back here, bring it back up to the next 4 game weeks. So Wolves away could be heaps of goals. Southampton at home could be heaps of goals. And then the next 2 games after that is Bournemouth away and then Brighton, who are playing an extremely high line. I mean, Man City could average 3 goals per game easily in these next 4 game weeks. And so I am really wanting to jump into the Man City attack. Now, the only real option here is to go with Phil Foden. Now, this is actually a pick that I am making on pedigree as opposed to any performance that I've actually seen Foden put out. Last week against Fulham, Foden didn't really have a particularly involved game. He was largely absent in this match. It was actually full credit to Fulham here. They did very much shut down the middle of the park, congesting the middle of the field. And Foden just couldn't really get on the ball. Now, I don't expect the upcoming opponents to be able to defend as eloquently as Fulham. Eloquently? Okay, that's more describing a use of words, but you get what I'm going for there. However, Foden did get a goal and an assist in that Champions League match just prior to Fulham against Bratislava. So he definitely does still have his eye in, assuming that he can't get on the ball. And like I've just gone through, Man City definitely do have the fixtures. And so Salah down to Foden is going to be the way that I am going to break apart this 3 premium setup. And as you can see, that does give me quite a lot of funds. I will have 3.6 million in the bank. Now, next on the list is I want to be investing into the Spurs attack. They are currently second on my fixture ticker for the next 4 game weeks. They play West Ham at home, Crystal Palace away, Aston Villa at home, and then Ipswich at home in the next 4 game weeks. And Spurs are basically just playing all out attack at the moment, and so I do see that there could be quite a lot of goals across this run of fixtures as well. Very quick side note, if you're not familiar with how to read a fixture ticker, any opponent that's in all lowercase means that they are playing that opponent away, and any with all capitals means they are playing that opponent at home. I haven't managed to set up a legend here. That's a very common way to set up these fixture tickers, and so if you're not familiar with that, that's how to read them. Now, out of this run of fixtures, West Ham could definitely concede a whole bunch of goals. Palace's defense has been really shoddy. I actually had a double up on the Crystal Palace defense earlier in the season and very quickly got out of that investment. Aston Villa in game week 10 could be a bit fatigued by the Champions League by then, and then Ipswich at home in game week 11. It's just a really nice run of fixtures for the Spurs attack. Now, if you didn't catch my last video in the international break, I have discounted Johnson from my plans already. If you want to see why I've decided to go against Johnson, check out my last video, but I won't go into that again here. Now, I could sell Semenyo and upgrade Semenyo to either Maddison or Kulusevski, but I haven't actually watched a lot of Spurs lately, and you really need to see how cohesive the team is to be buying into a streaky player like Maddison. So Maddison, to me, is a very much a confidence-based player who goes in and out of form. So you really have to be watching Spurs quite closely over a run of games to see how Maddison is faring. The XG doesn't really give away what is going on when it comes to a player like Maddison. If you see him talking to the crowd, you can tell he's full of confidence. He's always on the ball and his forward passes are constantly hitting the mark. And he is definitely a player that I would be looking to invest in. But I'm going a little bit blind on Spurs here. And so I'm not really looking at Maddison for this transfer. And Kulusevski has also become a little bit of a utility player in that Spurs outfit. So you also need to be up to speed on how he's being used in the team and whether Kulusevski has found his feet in whatever role that Postecoglou is asking him to play. So I'm also actually discounting Kulusevski purely based on the fact that I haven't seen enough of Spurs football to be able to confidently invest in either of those 2 players. Solanke, however, is just a solid player who always works hard, gets himself into good positions, and will score goals. He's a pretty good finisher as well, and so he is actually going to be another pedigree pick for my second transfer. And I will actually be ditching Joao Pedro for Solanke for this upcoming run of fixtures. It's already near the top of the list. Now that leaves me with 1.5 million in the bank and only Semenyo to deal with. Now, this video is already getting close to 20 minutes, and I actually haven't fully reached a conclusion on what I am going to do with Semenyo, and so I'm actually going to leave that decision for Friday's video. Now, I did say in my intro that I did have a tentative planned move for game week 9. Now, that move is actually to sell Saka out for Palmer. I don't want to jump on Palmer as he's about to go and play Liverpool. But as Arsenal's fixtures stiffen after this Bournemouth fixture, obviously I want to be holding Saka for Bournemouth, as that is pretty much a big part of the reason as to why I bought Saka in. Then he has to play Liverpool at home, tough game, Newcastle away and Chelsea away. I mean, these are tough-ish, but I will be buying into Chelsea, which have got Newcastle and then Manchester United. So, I mean, Manchester United's a much easier game at the moment than Newcastle, Chelsea for Arsenal. But then they also have to play Nottingham Forest at home in game week 12, and I don't actually see that as an easy green fixture. And so I do want to ditch Saka for this run of 4 fixtures. I do, of course, want to hold on to him for this Bournemouth fixture, but if he is, in fact, injured this week, I will need to probably adjust my plans on what I do with this final transfer, and I might actually have to hold on to Semenyo, play him in this Arsenal fixture if we do find that Saka is in fact injured. Of course, if we do find out that Saka's okay, then I will be looking to upgrade Semenyo while leaving enough funds in the bank to go from Saka to Palmer next week in game week 9. So I can actually go from Semenyo up by about 0.7 million. And I do have a couple of assets in mind for what I will be doing with that. So if you want to check out what my final move is going to be, come back to my video on Friday. But that wraps up this video. So don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment to tell us what you think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again next time.